Hello, wonderful interpreters, and thank you again for tuning in. A couple of weeks ago, I decided to reach out to LNI so we could get some answers about many of the questions and concerns that we received from interpreters via text, email, and phone calls about LNI's search for a new vendor. So they finally decided to reply, and they actually provided us with some answers, although in their own way. In this video, I'm going to show you those answers so you all know what LNI is planning and what their intentions are with this new vendor. Now let's get started. So what you can see here is some of the questions and concerns that we received from interpreters all over, and we decided to email LNI about. And, some of these questions are, will you choose a new vendor? Will you consider more than one? Will you choose a vendor from Washington State this time? Will you consider reinstating mileage reimbursement for in-person appointments? These are real questions that WFC is never going to ask, like they didn't ask in their survey. Questions like, is interpreting works part of the bidding process this time? Because many interpreters wanted to know that. What's LNI's projected day for a new vendor to start? We need to know when that date is going to be, right? What's LNI? Will interpreters still be required to have an NPI number? So many interpreters were concerned about this because the NPI number is something that's public to everyone, displaying your address, right? A big privacy concern. What will LNI or what will happen to independent individual interpreters provider numbers since on-demand jobs will be managed by the new vendor? People, they want to know because there is a fear that LNI will take away our provider numbers, right? So will LNI schedule or hold meetings with stakeholders, interpreters to gather suggestions for the new vendor? And will the new vendor track the location of interpreters for appointment distribution purposes? This is something that it's been big because Interpreting Works started doing that, right? And when will Interpreting Works contract with LNI expire? And if it did, has it been extended? So we're gonna go and dig into these answers. So let's see what they said. So as you see here, it took LNI almost 2 weeks to get back to us, but on August 18th, they responded, and Cristy Zarate, which is the contract manager and for this new search for the vendor, they directed me to find the answers in the Washington's Electronic Business Solution, or WEBS, website, which is the website where LNI posted their solicitation for a new vendor. Now we're gonna go there and see what these answers are all about. So I logged into the solicitations website, and I did confirm, as you see here, that they uploaded these solicitation documents on August 21st, just a couple of days ago, right? A few days ago. And so what LNI decided to do was to send me the questions and answers document, okay, that was uploaded to the system for all potential bidders of the contract to read. And these are questions and answers from the LNI pre-proposal bidders conference that they held on August 14th. And of course, before they get into any answers to questions submitted to them, they have to let you know that the response to any question was given orally was to be considered tentative. And also very important when dealing with LNI, you should know this, or with anybody else for that matter. You know what I mean? LNI shall be bound only to its written answers to questions. So for those of you that have talked to LNI staff before, if you have called with questions and concerns and they tell you one thing and then you get frustrated because actually that's not what they did in your case for any problems that you may have had in the past, this is why. They'll tell you anything over the phone or in person, but you need to know what's written and what their policies are, because that's what they're going to be subjected to, not to what they tell you over the phone. Well, with that said, let's see about those written answers from LNI. So we see the first question here that says, in regards to this new vendor for on-demand interpreting, is it to share the appointments with Interpreting Works or to take over? And this is a really important question because a lot of people were thinking that maybe LNI decided to have a couple of companies share everything. And this is definitely a possibility, but their answer here is the bidder awarded a contract will be responsible for providing all services under the contract. And we cover some of this in one of my most recent videos when LNI said in their document for the solicitation that they're looking for one statewide vendor, but they're open to the possibility of more. So let's continue. Now, this is more of a direct line of questioning when it comes to the previous question. And they're asking here, some of the potential bidders, I guess, will multiple awards be given? Will you choose only one vendor, or will you consider more than one? Can we apply for some of the services instead of all? You see these questions here. So the answer from LNI is this is not a single source contract and bidders can submit a bid for all services. And then lastly, they say here, while providers may see a benefit in having one contractor providing all services, we will follow our evaluation process to determine the best proposal for the services awarded through this contract. So they can decide to split, these services into multiple contracts. It's up to them, and they'll evaluate that process and make a determination. And here again, answering to one of the questions that we submitted to them, are you only considering Washington registered companies, and will you only choose a vendor from Washington state this time? And this is what LNI says, of course, no. To the first question, if they're only considering Washington registered companies, and then to the next one, they say, however, the companies participating in this solicitation must meet all Washington state procurement requirements and qualifications in order to do business in the state of Washington. So that means LNI doesn't really care about, leaving dollars here in the state. They could just pay this contract to any company from outside the state that provides a good platform that they're looking for. So they don't really care about keeping tax dollars here. It is what it is. And this is one hot topic and, hot burning question from pretty much every interpreter that we have received an email correspondence from. And this question is, will LNI consider reinstating mileage reimbursement for in-person appointments? And the answer, look at this. LNI's payment policy does not cover mileage. So this is a great way to evade a question because the question was not whether or not mileage reimbursement was covered. The question was, will you consider reinstating the mileage reimbursement? But of course, like any person working for a state agency or any politician, their masters are giving you non-answers. So the answer is pretty much no. And this question here says, is Interpreting Works part of the bidding process this time? And of course, LNI is not going to get into it. So this is kind of a non-answer again, but at the same time, they're telling you LNI does not know who will bid. You saw that in the last email that I sent you guys. Interpreting Works actually entered the bidding process. So let's continue. So this question here, which is important, it says, what's LNI's projected date for a new vendor or vendors to start? And they say LNI's target rollout for interpretation services provided under the new contract is June 2024. Okay, and it says LNI will work with the successful bidder to establish a rollout date dependent on completion of required activities. That's what they want to do, but we really don't know exactly, how this is going to work out. They're projecting to start next summer. We'll see about that. Maybe they'll do it sooner. It all depends on what happens with this process. Look at this question here, of course. Will interpreters still be required to have an NPI number? And they did not hesitate to tell you. They said, yes, LAPs, or language access providers, will still be required to have a National Provider Identification NPI. So if you want to continue providing services under the new vendor, expect to have that NPI number handy and know that whatever address that you put on is going to be displayed publicly. So you should know how to do this and how to navigate yourself through this process in order to protect your privacy. And now these questions here are, a very very serious warning for us as independent interpreters, those of us that still have a provider number with LNI. It says right here, when the new contract is awarded, will LNI still allow providers to obtain services directly from individual certified LNI LAPs for, ERs, urgent care, walk-ins, etc., or will they need to obtain services to the interpreter scheduling coordinating entity only? And what will happen to independent individual interpreters provider numbers since on-demand jobs will be managed by the new vendor? And this is what they said, okay? If LNI awards a contract with a vendor who can adequately provide in-person interpretation on-demand services, the individual provider accounts with LAPs will be inactivated. This is dependent upon the responses to the solicitation. So yeah, this is this is something that can happen for sure. And, with the technology nowadays, maybe one of these prospective bidders will provide a platform where LNI is going to be satisfied to let them cover on-demand appointments, and then they'll take away our provider numbers. So first, they took the agencies out because a very small amount of agencies were bad. They decided to punish every little agency, small agency that had a business or a provider number with LNI. And then when they established and implemented their scheduling system a couple of years ago, they limited independent interpreters to only on-demand appointments. And now they're looking to take that away from us to give it to, companies with the technology to do so. And expect those to probably be covered, through video and telephone appointments. Yeah, there you go. This is Wolfsie's wet dream. Welcome to it. And of course, another question that we submitted was, will LNI schedule hold meetings with stakeholders or interpreters to gather suggestions for the new vendor? I'm so glad that some of these prospective bidders, they actually submitted many of the same questions that we sent to LNI. This is great. But the answer here is that LNI conducted focus groups with providers and injured workers to obtain feedback. And they said that they also have received feedback from LAPs, providers, and other external stakeholders through our LNI Interpreter Services inbox and the Interpreting Works portal. So apparently they were reaching out to interpreters. I never received an invitation from LNI to get my opinion on it. And frankly, I don't know a lot of interpreters that did. But those that received an invitation, I guess they were able to offer their feedback. Go figure. And this question here says, will the new vendor track the location of interpreters for appointment distribution purposes? And again, this is a concern that many of us had in the beginning of this implementation because of the tracking and Interpreting Works and LNI promising that they were not going to be selling out your data or whatever. Those are promises, who knows what happens with the algorithm and how they control it and what they do with it. I don't trust these people. I don't trust anybody, actually, that's having information about, where I'm at, through my phone. It's really scary, but this is a reality that we have to go through if we want to get work with Interpreting Works or, prospective vendors. And the answer from LNI is the RFQQ does not include any requirement related to tracking the LAP's location. And of course, this is again a non-answer because I don't believe they had this requirement before they implemented Interpreting Works, but they nonetheless allowed Interpreting Works to track interpreters' location through their phone. So what they're saying here is pretty much, that's going to be up to the new vendor. LNI is not, really saying to a new vendor, don't do that. They're not going to do that. They don't care. So they're just saying whatever happens, happens. And this question right here says, when will Interpreting Works' contract with LNI expire? And if it did, has it been extended? And they extended the contract. The answer is the contract with Interpreting Works expires on June 14th, 2024. And of course, they provided a copy of a sample contract for a new vendor and also the current contract with Interpreting Works, and it shows right here that, it has been extended until June 14th, 2024. You see the signature from the My Language Link Corp, which is the real name of Interpreting Works. They're just doing business here as Interpreting Works in Washington. And this is a signature from Marisa Giglio, the owner of the My Language Link Corp, doing business as Interpreting Works. And there you have it. You see the questions and answers that they submitted to us and actually to all prospective bidders for the contract. And so what I have to say about all of this, it has been said before. We don't have a union, and, hopefully we'll get a chance to have another election so we could have a real union, not WILFC, which is actually on board with all of these changes, despite how it might affect and just destroy our livelihoods. And so, what I would say is this, it really, upset me that they reached out to supposedly interpreters, stakeholders, and providers, and I didn't receive an invitation to offer my feedback, and I believe that a lot of you didn't. And so, I would encourage you to contact Cristy Zarate, okay, and email her, which is the contract manager for LNI. Email her or call her. Let her know how you feel about this. Submit your suggestions. And if you're not in agreement with any of these changes or some of those, whatever your opinion is, email LNI and let them know what's up. Okay, let them know that, you don't want your location to be tracked, that you want independent interpreters to still be used with their independent individual provider numbers and so on. We actually want a dual system, but at the end of the day, we need to have a union to actually fight for these changes. So thank you guys for watching this video. Share it with all LNI interpreters that you know. And by the way, we're gonna have some more answers from LNI, and I'll make another video as soon as we receive those. Have a good rest of your day, and God bless.